Alright, today's lecture is about Jacob's Epiphany. We'll be referring to the Bible, Genesis chapter 32, verses 24 through verse 32. First of all, I just want to let you know that this story is an allegory. I'm going to now define allegory. Allegory is a symbolic work in which characters and events are to be understood as representing other things and symbolically expressing a deeper, often spiritual, moral, or political meaning. So it's not to be taken literally. So this story is not to be taken literally. So I'm going to summarize the literal parts of it. First of all, Jacob wrestled with a man. Never identified a man, and the man doesn't have a name. The man then renames Jacob Israel after Jacob wrestles with him and wins all night. He wrestles with him all night and wins. So in the morning he named him Israel. Israel then calls the place where this took place Pineal Land in one sentence, and in the very next sentence he changes the spelling from having an I-E-L to a U-E-L. So just read that verse for yourself. Either Google it or you can look into the Bible itself. He then refers to the mystery man as God, as he's seen the face of God. So that's the story. Read it for yourself. Today's brief lecture will focus on the allegorical Penuel Land. The rest may be revisited in another video. You can also study on your own, such as Esau represents the animals, the animal desires or thoughts that man has. That's Jacob's brother. Jacob represents the higher thoughts or the soul. Jacob's ladder, for example, means it's the spine. Represents allegorically as the spine. So that may be discussed in another video. Right now we're gonna refer to the Pineal Land as being the pineal gland. So let's define epiphany. You can refer to this, or you can pause the video or write it down. I'm going to talk about it anyway. Epiphany is the appearance or vision of God or divine being. It's also defined as a sudden realization or intuitive understanding. Alright, once again, it's an appearance or vision of God or some divine being is one definition. Another definition is a sudden realization or intuitive leap of understanding. Now, this word epiphany comes from the word epiphysis. Well, I should say vice versa. Epiphysis comes from the word epiphany. There is a gland in your brain called the Epiphysis Gland. It's better known as the Pineal Gland. Now, what I'm trying to get you to understand, you need to correlate. Pineal, P-I-N-E-A-L, is the same as what Jacob called Penuel Land and Pineal Land. I know it's spelled different, but you got to see in the Bible, if P-E-N-U-E-L and P-E-N-I-E-L means the same thing, it shouldn't be far-fetched to understand that P-I-N-E-A-L means the same thing. Vowels are always interchangeable. Because back in old languages, they didn't have vowels. They only had consonants. Now, if that's not going to convince you, let me define Peniel and Peniel as defined in the Bible. It means face of God, vision of God, understanding of God, within the presence of God. So if you go back to the Epiphany definition, it means appearance or vision of God. That's one of the definitions of Pineal Land. It means intuitive leap of understanding. Isn't that one of the definitions of Pineal or Pineal Land as said on this page? Alright. So pineal gland, he's allegorically Pineal Land and Pineal Land is allegorically referring to the pineal gland or the epiphysis gland, because Jacob got an epiphany once he wrestled with the angel all night, which turned out to be God, and he got named Israel. The name Jacob means supplanter or to replace. Sometimes it means liar in wait, so he's lying in wait or heel puller. So he supplanted God and became Israel. Israel means to contend with God, to prevail with God, and wrestle with God. So that's what he did. He became Israel. So he supplanted God once he won and became Israel, which means three lights. You got Isis, which is moonlight, the sun god Ra, which is sunlight, El really means stars or light or power. It doesn't really mean God. The Canaanites call El God, but it really means light or power, or it can refer to the stars. So you have Isis, which is the moon, Ra, which is the sun god, and El, which are the stars. So sun, moon, and star. So he became illuminated or enlightened once he seen the face of God, after he wrestled with God and seen the face of God. He had an epiphany. An epiphany because he seen a vision of God. He was in God's presence with his Epiphysis Gland. Alright? So now I'm going to summarize. Basically, this is an allegorical story. Let me flip this over. This is an allegorical story about pure thoughts or angels climbing up and down, ascending and descending up the spine, which is called Jacob's ladder, illuminating the Pineal Gland, which he calls Penuel Land or Pineal Land. Therefore, supplanting, which is Jacob, mundane or earthly thoughts, which is Esau, his brother, with enlightening or illuminated thoughts, which is Israel. So Israel means light. So he basically became enlightened once he wrestled with God all night and got renamed. So it's just basically a story about how you have to wrestle with your animal flesh and animal thoughts, mundane thoughts like paying my bills, thinking about earthly things, and become high and trust God and supplant God. Basically take on the mind of God. You're not taking God's place, but you're sharing in the mind of God. Alright, so some of the references you can use is, of course, the Holy Bible. You can use any dictionary online. Same thing with the Bible. You can go online and just Google Genesis chapter 32 verses 24 to 32. You can also Google any definition just by typing in the name and push define after it. Go on Wikipedia. It's another reference. I also use a metaphysical Bible dictionary, which will give you the story about all the different names, what they mean, and the stories, what they mean metaphysically. So meta means beyond the physical. That means spiritual or allegorically. So you can get a metaphysical Bible dictionary by Charles Fillmore. Charles Fillmore. F-I-L-M-O-R-E. Alright, thank you. That's a short video. More to come that's going to be related or semi-related to this subject.